Hey guys, welcome back. Today I have some Infinite news that nobody seems to be talking about that could potentially have huge ramifications and could actually mean that Infinite's multiplayer, a beta, or hell, maybe even the entire game are a lot closer than many of us originally thought. Now, this news comes from a source that not many people on YouTube cover, and that is HCS, that's the esports side of Halo. So I think that's probably why not many people are talking about it, so I figured I would make a video about it. So, the news. What is it? Well, recently, 3 major esports organizations, technically 2, but 3 really, have picked up Halo rosters. These organizations being Sentinels, who, to be fair, did already have a Halo team. Also, the name Sentinels for a Halo team. Perfect. Cloud9, one of the biggest international esports organizations in the entire industry, who have teams in multiple massive games from League of Legends to Counter-Strike to Smash and many other things, and Team Envious, one of the biggest shooter esports organizations in history, and also one that's been in Halo before. So you're probably thinking that this isn't really that out of the ordinary, right? I mean, Halo has historically always been a competitive game. There have always been tournaments for Halo going on, regardless of what era of Halo we've been in. There's always been some tournament or event going on, so these organizations are just picking up teams for those events. But you've got to remember, right? Esports is a business, and these organizations are the absolute best of the best in esports when it comes to being an esports organization and also running themselves like a business. Right now, the only Halo tournaments going on are these, like, I think weekend or bi-weekendly online Halo 5 events with a $5,000 prize pool, where the winning team, bearing in mind there's 4 people on the team, the winning team takes home like $2,000. That's not that significant, right? These organizations are not going to be picking up the absolute best of the best when it comes to Halo rosters, giving them a salary, sending them sponsored stuff and getting them hooked up with sponsors just so they can represent their brand in a, like, weekend 1,000-viewer, $5,000 Halo 5 tournament. They aren't going to be making investments as large as this for events where the first place team takes home $2,000. Like, at the end of the day, the organizations, I think, typically take 10% of that. They aren't going to be making investments as big as this to take $200. It's just not how that works. Granted, these organizations announcing their return to Halo or their entry into Halo could just be, like, contractual obligations, like maybe they signed the contracts with the teams before the delay, and given that the game was meant to be coming out like within a month of now, it was going to be around this time when they were originally going to announce that they joined Halo. But I don't know how far in advance these things end up getting signed. I honestly know nothing about the business side of esports, so I don't know about that. But I don't know, part of me doubts that. Part of me really doubts that. Kind of branching off from this point as well, a Halo player called Frosty, who won the first Halo 5 World Championships and also the second one, and was part of like the best team throughout the entirety of Halo 5. At the end of Halo 5, he went to Call of Duty and competed in the CDL, but recently he's come back to Halo and he's back on that #1 team. Now, we don't know if that means anything. Frosty probably doesn't know anything that we don't, honestly. I just figured I'd throw that in there as well. Just another little bit of evidence that suggests that, at least on the esports side of things, for Infinite, the ball is kind of starting to roll. And when you look at all this evidence put together, it really tells me that these organizations know something about Infinite that we don't, right? At the end of the day, 343 are heavily invested into esports now, and so are Microsoft, right? So these organizations that are going to be investing in their game, in their product, they're going to be told information beforehand. They're going to know stuff before we do. That's natural, right? That's business. It's a give and take thing. And even if nothing else in this video ends up being true, and if all of this is just some wild conspiracy theory, then at the very least, these organizations signing Halo teams is very promising for Infinite's multiplayer. However, when you look at all the evidence, when it's stacked together, I truly believe that it's pointing at something being very close around the corner. I don't think these organizations would be signing rosters and paying their salaries and everything a year plus in advance if the game were to be coming out in fall 2021, like a lot of us thought it would be. I don't think they'd be signing teams now if the game was coming out next fall. Okay, so when you kind of zoom out and look at all of this information together, what does it mean? Well, I think it means one or two or hell, maybe even three of three different things, right? Number one, the infinite multiplayer reveal, and by extension, the beta or flighting, isn't that far away. Two, Infinite itself might be coming out a lot sooner than a lot of us originally thought. Or three, Infinite multiplayer, at least from an esports perspective, is shaping up to be very, very promising. Now, based on all of this information, my extremely hopeful prediction is that we're going to get a beta or flighting or something by the end of the year, followed by a release in spring. Now that would make sense because the beta would be able to go ahead on next-gen consoles, considering they'll be out by the start of November, which will then lead very smoothly into a release at some point during the spring. I'll be honest, right? This news has completely changed my opinion on when I think Infinite is going to be coming out. I was originally quite adamant that the game was going to be coming out in fall next year, but now, like, seeing these esports organizations picking up top rosters, I don't see them picking up these rosters and then giving them a salary for a year before launch to not really compete in anything that will grow their brand. To me, these esports organizations jumping into Halo now just screams of a spring release. I will be shocked if it doesn't release in spring given this news. Okay, so moving on, I've got one more piece of information that could maybe, and I say that very tentatively, maybe be hinting at a spring release. I wouldn't put too much belief in this, but I want to mention it anyway because it's worth talking about. So, the Infinite art book got its release date changed recently to June 29th. Now, these concept art books typically release very shortly after the release of a game because obviously they contain spoilers for the game and they're not going to release them before the game comes out. They release them like a couple weeks after the game comes out. So, if that were the case, that would be hinting at like a late spring / early summer release for Infinite, which would line up with the rest of the information in this video. That said, I'm not entirely sure whether June 29th isn't just another placeholder date or not. So I get sent so many messages from people sending me a picture of like Infinite's Amazon listing with the release date as December 31st, 2020. That's not an actual release date. If you ever see that on a game or a book or anything, that isn't a release date, that's a placeholder. That's the last day in Q4 of the year. And June 29th is like one of the last days in Q2 of 2021. So whether or not that's a placeholder date that's just put there by Amazon before they get the actual release date, it very well could be. I don't know. If that release date is true, then it's definitely hinting at a spring release, but it could very well be a placeholder date. So, like I said, don't put too much belief in this. Don't start thinking this is pure confirmation that Infinite is coming out next spring or summer. It's just something that I wanted to mention. And finally for today, I want to cover one more bit of news that I'm sure most of you have already seen, but I figured that I'd mention it and cover it very briefly just for those who maybe didn't see it. And that is the Halo Infinite Mark 7 Monarch coating. So this, funnily enough, is actually the first in-game picture that we've ever seen of Infinite's multiplayer armor, Mark 7 specifically, and I've got to say, the armor itself looks really, really nice. I'm a big fan, but the color scheme of the armor is supposedly this Monarch armor coating. Now, armor coating is a strange term because that could mean an entire plethora of things, right? We can clearly see that the armor coating involves colors, which is interesting because purple with gold trim, which is the color of this Mark 7, is quite a royal monarch type color scheme. That's what you'd expect someone in a monarchy to be wearing, purple and gold. So that fits the bill, but the term armor coatings makes me really confused. Now, originally, if they just said armor coatings and not released a picture with them, I would have just thought that it was like a pattern on your armor or like an armor skin like we had in Halo 4 and Halo 5. But there's no skin or like pattern or texturing or anything on this armor. So what actually is an armor coating? Is it like a Destiny style shader? Is it like an armor trim color, like a tertiary color like you used to get back in Halo 3 and Halo 2? Or like a Halo 4 and Halo 5 style armor skin? Or is it something to do with armor textures or patterns like you could get in Doom multiplayer back in the day? I don't know. Honestly, this term is really, really confusing, and 343 did not elaborate on it. I really wish they had done, because a lot of people are kind of confused as to what it means. The way that you get this Monarch armor coating is by buying Chips Ahoy or something, so it's part of... Part of yet another Halo Infinite brand promotion. The only way we're getting information for this game at the moment, so I'm not going to complain. But yeah, there it is. Speculate away in the comments. I have no idea what an armor coating is. And I'll be honest, as cool as this picture is, it doesn't make me any wiser about what they are. So just guess away down below in the comments. And so that's all of today's Infinite news. That is why I think that Infinite's multiplayer reveal or multiplayer beta, or maybe even Infinite as a whole, might be a lot closer around the corner than a lot of us originally thought. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Let me know if this information and this news change your opinion on when Halo Infinite is actually going to be coming out, because I know that a lot of people, a lot of you guys included, were pretty adamant that it was going to be fall next year, but I don't know. I'm not so sure now. Let me know if any of this information has changed your mind or your thought process on any of this as well. I'd love to hear it. So I want to give a massive thank you to all of my amazing patrons for the continued support over there, as per usual. And thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And I'll catch you all in the next one.